This Blood Surge build is incredibly fun and powerful. You pump out ridiculous screen-wide damage, all the while being tanky enough to play in the thick of it instead of having to constantly kite. At level 80, I'm comfortably doing tier 50-ish nightmare dungeons with plenty of room for upgrades. The build is also extremely flexible with a low barrier for entry. You only need one aspect and one rare Paragon cluster for it to work, and everything else is just an added bonus to flesh out the build. I'll run through how it works, then we'll get into how to build it. This Blood Surge build focuses on overpower damage. Now, overpower is unique in the sense that it scales with very few stats. Bonuses like flat percent damage, damage while fortified, damage while close, core skill damage and so on don't affect it. The damage scales with your life, fortify, blood skill damage and a few other exceptions like the imperfectly balanced passive. So, to reasonably scale our damage enough for late game, we make the overpower effect happen more often, which we can achieve through having massive attack speed and passive resource generation. As you can see, we look like a firecracker endlessly casting our Blood Surge. Starting out with our talents and abilities, for the majority of endgame content we take Reap. The enhanced Reap helps with our attack speed needs, and Acolyte's Reap to spawn a corpse is extremely useful for starting fights. The essence generation is also very impressive when there's lots of enemies. Generally speaking, Reap is the choice for AoE, which is most of your Diablo 4 content, but for difficult bosses without adds, you can swap to Hemorrhage, up to Initiate's Hemorrhage for the extra Fortify. This will provide much more single target essence generation and survivability in single target. Next, we max out Blood Surge. Strangely, the extra ranks don't improve your overpowered damage, but the ability itself still does good damage and is worth the investment anyway. And of course, we take Paranormal Blood Surge so it can proc overpower. We take the essence here and the bonus damage here. This one does apply to our overpower. Max out Hued Flesh. This gives us so many corpses to work with. Take Blood Surge up to Dreadful Blood Mist for the Fortify bonus. Whether you put 1 or 5 points into Corpse Explosion depends on your current needs. In earlier and easier content, the damage can be nice, but if you are pushing harder content, these points are better spent on Corpse Tendrils, which we'll get to in a moment. We always go with Blighted Corpse Explosion. The AoE dot enables stats like damage reduction from enemies that are affected by shadow dots, or damage to enemies in shadow dots. It also rapidly spawns corpses through the Hued Flesh passive. Max out Grim Harvest. This gives us some extra resource generation, but rest assured, this isn't how we'll be generating most of our essence. Here we take Decrepify up to the Execute bonus. The cooldown reduction can be nice, but it doesn't feel that impactful for this build, and the Execute bonus helps with kill speed. The damage reduction and slow is great for improving our survivability. It's also a great way to enable any stats that need enemies to be slowed or crowd controlled. Max out Death's Embrace. The damage reduction is extremely valuable for our close range playstyle. The blood passive nodes here are quite valuable. The extra healing is great. The blood skill damage improves our overpower, which is something we desperately need. And Tides of Blood also improves our overpower damage. Drained Vitality sounds nice on paper, but the proc chance on Blood Surge is so low, and Lucky Hit isn't really a stat we're gunning for, so I have 1 point in there just to top things off every now and then, but realistically, you could put that point anywhere else. I have maxed out Corpse Tendrils to help lower the cooldown. This is mainly for higher tier Nightmare dungeons. For most other content, you can slam those points into Corpse Explosion instead. We actually take the Blood Orb upgrade here instead of applying Vulnerable. Vulnerable doesn't affect overpower, and with a Paragon glyph that I'll cover soon, Blood Orbs keep our Fortify topped up, keeping us alive and greatly increasing our overpower damage. The standalone damage reduction is amazing, so we max that out, and the extra sacrifice bonus is crucial for our overpower damage, so it also gets 3 of 3. And finally, we take Ruthma's Vigor. In earlier content, we can try to use this proc on our Blood Mist for massive damage to single target or cleave. As you progress, this doesn't scale as well and the ticks are capped out, so increasing your attack speed doesn't improve the overall damage. It's still useful for boss and cleave DPS, but you'll not find it quite as important to do the higher you go. In our Book of the Dead, we sacrifice the defenders for more survivability. Most crucially, the Bone Mages are sacrificed for overpowered damage. I can't overstate just how impactful this is. Between the sacrifice passive and the sacrifice aspect, this over doubles our overpower damage. You can see here that I have 1750 overpower, and while the number on sacrifice only says 53, When I disable it, I drop all the way down to 815 overpowered damage. What's important here is the little X next to the number. This makes the stat multiplicative rather than additive. For example, my weapon has 55% overpowered damage on it, but no little X. So when I take it off, I only lose 120, instead of the 900 that happens when my 52% on skeleton mages is disabled. To maximize our overpowered damage, we need to stack as many multiplicative effects and bulk damage from our normal overpowered damage stats as possible. And finally, we sacrifice the blood golem for the extra life. An argument can be made for the attack speed, but life is just so valuable for endgame content and scaling our overpowered damage. I'll cover the Paragon boards next, as that will provide a lot of context for the choice in what aspects we use on our gear. For this build, there are 4 goals to achieve with the board ordered by their importance. First, we need to socket and activate a Blood Drinker glyph. This now allows our blood orbs to give us Fortify, which keeps us alive and ensures our overpower is doing as much damage as possible. Generally speaking, when pathing around the boards, we want the shortest paths to important clusters as possible, prioritizing willpower nodes if there's a choice. This is how my board currently looks at level 80, but rest assured it's well worth changing it as you go if you don't have enough points for everything. The most important thing we need out of this actually comes from the Bone Graft board, despite not using a single bone ability. We're aiming for the Reinvigorate rare node and the Essence on Kill magic nodes. This gives us 4 essence per kill, which is a build defining value. This is what lets us churn out endless blood surges, making it feel like you have a permanent channeling shrine active. If you have enough Paragon points, I would have it sticking off the side of the Blood Begets Blood board, but if you do not have enough, attach the Bone Graft board first, get these Essence on Kill nodes, then just fill out more of the first board and second board until you have enough Paragon points to reach these nodes with the Blood Begets Blood board attached first instead. Our third goal is this glyph socket on the Blood Begets Blood board. There's many willpower nodes nearby to boost up the Dominate glyph. Mine currently provides 282% overpowered damage. This massive boost is crucial for making our overpowered damage multipliers more effective, which is exactly why the Bloodbath board wasn't the first priority. Another 50% of a low baseline number doesn't provide nearly enough value, but when you have greatly increased your baseline through the Dominate glyph, those multipliers become much more valuable. Again, if you don't have enough Paragon points to path through these clusters, align the board with the glyph at the entrance instead. The fourth goal is to reach the Bloodbath legendary node. By the time you reach it, you've accumulated an enormous amount of overpowered damage throughout the rest of our Paragon nodes to make it worthwhile. At level 80, I still have many Paragon points to earn, and my next goals are to socket the Undaunted and or Control glyphs, aiming for nodes and boards that provide more max health. Outside of the Bloodbath node, the legendaries don't do much for us, so we are hunting for good magic and rare nodes and glyph sockets. In general, if you are pathing to a goal, I'd spend the points on closer bonuses and then refund them when you have enough points to reach that goal. At the start of the video, I mentioned we only needed one Paragon cluster, which was the Essence on Kill, and one aspect for this build to function. The aspect we need is Ruthma's Chosen. This provides a huge attack speed buff after overpowering. Attacking so quickly would normally deplete our essence just as fast, but with our Essence on Kill, we stay topped up and can churn out blood surges. Many aspects are useful for this build, and you can swap them in and out depending on your build needs and what you have available. The other important aspects are Blood Surge Echoing. This echo will also proc your overpowered damage, so it's very valuable. Core skill crits granting attack speed. Even though we aren't building crit, we attack so often and hit so many targets that this buff is always up. The armor stacking aspect is incredible for survivability. Consuming a corpse to spawn blood orbs helps keep our Fortify topped up, and by this point in the Paragon tree, and even with some gear, blood orbs are providing a massive damage buff too. While this doesn't apply to overpower, it helps make your unempowered hits contribute much more. The sacrifice bonus is also highly valuable. The 33% here is giving me almost 300% more overpower damage. I would place the sacrifice aspect or the overpower attack speed aspect on your amulet for the bonus. Basic skills grant 20% damage reduction is a great defensive choice and works well with both Reap or Hemorrhage. Dodge chance and resource generation against enemies affected by a shadow dot is a niche choice, but it can be extremely useful if you have the stats for it. I don't have a huge amount of dodge, with about 10% between the aspect and my normal dodge, and another 10% from close range targets, and even then the damage reduction is excellent, and it can help top up my essence. I would run movement speed on crit on my boots if I could, but I haven't found anything better than this unique with a useless effect at the moment. The Corpse Tendrils aspect can be useful for helping proc your crit effects and boosting your damage. The crit bonus works on overpower for some reason, probably not intended. We don't build for crit, so this isn't a big deal, so I wouldn't consider it essential. There are other aspects you may swap in and out, like gaining essence if you collect a blood orb on full life, or extra overpower when you overheal. Mostly, I value defense, attack speed, and sacrifice. I recommend using a fast one hand like a dagger. Your weapon speed affects how quickly your spells cast, so using a big two-hander, even if you double the attack speed on overpower bonus, you're basically just compensating for that difference in weapon speed and losing out on another aspect you could have on an offhand. Shields with the right stats are a great option too, though I haven't found any yet that are worth removing my focus at the moment. My gear is far from perfect and I don't have the money to re-roll, but in general, you want to prioritize plus life, blood skill damage, attack speed, overpower damage, damage reduction with shadow dots, and essence cost reduction. Other useful stats will be other damage reductions, armor, willpower, and some fortified generation. Uniques aren't very useful for this build, and the poor stats they come with aren't worth the trade-off. Temerity can be good until later game, but the barrier works off your base life, and losing out on defensive stats isn't worth it when mobs start hitting really hard. For your armor gems, I would use rubies until the very late game. They only increase your base life, so at a certain point it may be better to swap to topaz for the extra damage reduction. Put skulls in your jewelry for the extra armor, and put rubies in your weapons for more overpower damage. For consumables, extra life, attack speed, armor, resource cost reduction, or overpower damage are good options. So, with the build covered, how do you actually play it? Against tough packs, start by casting Decrepify to slow them, reduce their damage, and enable certain stats. Swing once with Reap to spawn a corpse, cast Corpse Tendrils, move back if you need, and cast Corpse Explosion while you wait for Tendrils to activate. The Corpse Explosion will enable stats and start spawning additional corpses with hewed flesh, then dash back into the stunned enemies and start spamming Blood Surge. Outside of spamming Blood Surge, if you suspect the pack will be strong, last a long time, and or have multiple waves spawning, you can cast Reap again after dashing in to benefit from the 30% attack speed after an enemy dies. Every 3 seconds or so, or if there are many enemies nearby and you could use more essence and the defensive procs, cast Reap again to top up and refresh your attack speed. During the encounter, and especially between waves, sweep your cursor back and forth over the area casting Corpse Explosion. You'll essentially carpet bomb the room, and you should prioritize exploding corpses around enemies to ensure they're under the shadow dot status effect. Right now, the blighted Corpse Explosion blinds you, but when it's inevitably changed, this next part will be a little easier. During a battle between your Corpse Explosions and Corpse Tendrils spawning blood orbs, you can dash around, picking up clusters of them to top up your Fortify, and dodge important enemy attacks. If you find you don't have enough damage to kill elites without mobs nearby to help fuel your essence, you may want to kite them to other packs. Killing a solo elite is extremely inefficient with this build, so if you only get them down to half or a third life before the ads die, simply kite them into new enemies. When you start a dungeon or come back from a death, you won't have any Fortify built up, so your damage and survivability will be much lower. It can be a good idea to farm the first pack for blood orbs. We do this by allowing the pack to live for around 1 to 3 Corpse Tendril casts to help spawn blood orbs. We can then kill the pack, Corpse Explode each body if you have the aspect to spawn them. This should get you to maximum Fortify and have you fully prepared for the next encounters. And there we have it. This Blood Surge build is a lot of fun, super satisfying to play, and highly competitive. Thanks so much for watching, be sure to subscribe for more content like this, and I'll catch you in the next one.